Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared, and today I'm talking to Jessica Robertson. She is going to be starting a channel, but hasn't done so yet, which I'm making an exception for her because she's the reason that I got to go to Kirtland to view the eclipse. So I started going through my emails because a number of you have said that you wanted to start channels. And so I let a couple weeks go by. And then she was the first one that sent me an email, and when I contacted her, she was doing a tour of the Kirtland Temple, and that's like what got the ball rolling, and the rest was history. So thank you, Jessica, for first of all responding and wanting to do a YouTube channel, because I think it's really important that we all use our voices, and this is a way that you can really carry your voice very far across the world. So thank you for doing that. And then thank you for making it possible for us to go to Kirtland. And also thank you to Jessica's friends in her ward, Tracy and Corey, who let us stay at their house. They just happened to be going to the Dominican Republic while this was happening. So their house was available and it just all worked out perfectly. So I wanted to ask you, we already talked on the phone, Jessica, but really quick before we talk about anything else, can you kind of relay your experience on that day, on April 3rd, when I contacted you, what that was like for you going through the Kirtland Temple?
Yeah, so definitely I want the viewers to know that this experience, I think, needs to be shared because of just everything that you even said in in how we connected. Um this really is the Lord's work at hand. And just to kind of give a background, I moved to Ohio just 2 years ago from North Carolina. And prior to that, every time I read about Hiram or Kirtland, like something within me just like stirred. And I was kind of like, you are forsaking Nauvoo. Like Nauvoo's my sacred place, my happy place. But I have soon come and love and appreciate everything even so more now than before Kirtland. And so when we first moved up here, we went to Kirtland for my birthday, and I was so excited. I was just like, of all the heavenly messages, the messengers, the heavens were purely open in Kirtland, and I wanted to just like get some type of essence of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I walked those grounds, I didn't feel anything. I felt forsaken. Like I was like, why? Like, and I started praying within, and I was just like, why am I not feeling anything? And the sweet spirit came in and says, now you know where I am not. And I was like, oh, yes, of course. Like, I understand now. And
Can I
so
say something really quick?
yeah,
Because before
go for
talking to
it.
you, I was talking to Tracy. She's the one that let us stay at her house. And we had this like exact same conversation because she had moved up to Ohio in 2020, which is the time that I moved to Kansas. It's also the same time that Tamara from Adirondack moved to Adirondack. So a lot of things were happening since then and ever since then. But I asked her about like did you go see the Kirtland Temple before the church purchased it, and of course she said yes, and she said the same thing like what you're saying right now. And I had the same experience recently in Independence, Missouri, going to the temple lot and also the Community of Christ temple, because that we also need that land for the 24 temple complex. And yeah, yeah, you feel like forsaken. It feels like something's wrong. It feels not good. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that.
No, and I mean it's like it's another testament, of what's going on, because when the kids and I went to Kirtland on April 3rd, in fact, and it's kind of funny that we actually ended up on April 3rd because we were supposed to go the day before, but because of all those crazy storms that went through the Ohio Valley, we postponed our trip. And like a prayer of my heart before we even went to Kirtland, when we found out that the Kirtland Temple was going to be opened and that the church, you know, um, secured it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I was thinking of all the wonderful times, what do I want to say? Oh gosh, the words are just failing me now. The historical context, like the dates, the specifics, dates that they were going to be remembering. And I was like, oh, I would have loved to be there on, when the day that it was dedicated, and, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get there, and I didn't think of April 3rd. Like in my head, like I'm just like, oh, we missed it all or whatever. And then they're like, you came on such a special day. And I was like, wait, what day is it? Like, I just did not know. And then the sweet sister came in and she says, I'm not your tour guide, but I really feel that you should know this. And she says, President Nelson really wanted the world to have access to Kirtland from 20 days from the purchase date, so that the world can experience these historical days in the temple. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, I just was like,
Yeah.
oh my word. So the kids and I, when we first arrived to the temple, they were like, Mom, it's so different. And we noticed right off the bat that the temple looked whiter. It looked bright. And I had a thought later on after I was like contemplating this, and the church, it's in possession of the church, and it's where it belongs. And it was one of those moments I'm like, yes, this all feels right. And just tender mercies throughout. I got to see a temple friend and a fellow temple ordinance worker right before we entered. And it just little love notes from heaven. Like, I just feel like everything was just so perfectly aligned. And then you messaged me while I was just about to go into the temple. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, all these things are going on. But entering the temple, because I didn't do the temple inside the temple, but entering the temple and walking up those stairs and just taking my family to, I don't want to say like Holy of Holies, but like it's where the prophet saw Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. Like, we were in that very room and just sitting there, and the Spirit was so strong, and it was just, sorry, I'm a crier.
That's okay. Yeah, and I'm not the only one that cried during the eclipse, right? Jenica said that you and Melanie cried too.
It was intense. Like, we're still trying to come off the mountain here.
I know.
It's such a journey. And then we came down and we went to the second court, and then we went to the lower court. And in that moment, they were talking about the heavenly messengers that were actually in that room. I don't know of any place on this earth that they can say, well, I mean, besides Jerusalem, but like they pinpoint exactly the very spot that Jesus Christ stood. What place? And we have that.
No.
And I was sitting there, like, my sweet son Spencer was sitting next to me, and he just leaned into me, and I'm like, Christ stood right there. And then they were talking about Moses and Elias and Elijah. And Elijah for me, besides obviously Christ, but Elijah to me, for him to restore the sealing ordinances for families. It's special. And it was such, I mean, I could not sing the Spirit of God. They have us, we stood and sang the Spirit of God, and oh my word, the Spirit of God did reside with us, and I could not utter. My frame was shaking. I was in the presence of so many unseen people, and it was like a love note from heaven saying, you are on the right path, you're doing good, and this is exactly what you're called to do, is to find those family members that are missing, to seal them. And it all originated here in Kirtland. It was just one of those moments that I'm just woof, still like decompressing, processing. And then
Yeah,
we had conference a few days later and the solar eclipse. And it's just I'm a hot mess.
me too. I'm still feeling it right now. And I've been thinking about it. Okay, so the missionaries said that the Kirtland Temple does not need to be rededicated. Like the original dedication, like still stands, even though it's been in the possession of other parties. And I was looking at President Nelson's talk as I because like there's so much to go over, but the video I did today, I was going over his talk, and he talked about the fact that all these like temple blessings, they they come with every dedicated temple. And he put in italics every, which would include the Kirtland Temple. I really think that it's like a rare opportunity for the public to go inside a dedicated temple, even though it's being used for tours. Everybody can go in there. You don't need a temple recommend, but I think you still get that. Like you still have those like the like for example, angels having charge over you. All I can say is that going through the temple, I came out feeling different. And before going in, the missionary, like when you go in that room where it has like the big windows and you're looking at the Kirtland Temple from the visitor center, he was like, "I'm warning you, once you go through here, the Kirtland Temple is going to become your favorite temple." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's nice," but no, that actually is kind of like true. I think like right now it actually is for me. So, um,
I agree with that
Tracy was
100%.
talking about how a lot of things have been cleaned up from like before the transfer of ownership. Like, have you noticed that too? Because you've been in that area for a while. So she was talking about like the grounds seem a little bit better kept or not overgrown. Or what did you notice?
Honestly, I really the community of Christ did a really good job. It was their stewardship. We all have certain things that we're, destined to be in charge of. And I think the community of Christ, held it for us for this specific time to come forward and to be restored. Um, I think I don't think too much like, how can I put this? The physical attributes versus the spiritual attributes. And I think the spiritual attributes magnify the physical attributes, if that makes sense. Like just the ownership and actually changing names and who, it's kind of like what I told you before. Like when you buy your house, it changes. Like the spirit comes in, it's aligned with you because you own it. And I think that's the same thing what happened with the Kirtland Temple. When the church bought it, now it's sanctified. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
I do.
it's
Yeah.
it's part of that. It's, opening that vessel and allowing it to actually have full, you know, connection.
Did they before is this now that we own the temple that now you sing the Spirit of God, or did they do that before under Community of Christ during the
I
tour? Do
don't
you know?
honestly, I don't know. And it was interesting. Um, I know when the Community of Christ had to change their name and they had to like not disavow, but they had to like break ties from certain things. I was pondering that today, and I think a lot of what they are currently in now, um, since they had to forsake so much of their history, um, because they didn't talk about those things, as I've heard from other people. Like I don't know firsthand, but the tour was very specific on what they can document, and like they really worked really well with all the journals, all the statements, everything, the scriptures. They didn't take anything from the community of Christ and said this is what the tour was. This is the legacy of Kirtland, essentially, like in the rawest, truest form possible. They didn't take anything else from the community of Christ and what they did with the previous tour. It was solely just facts versus fiction, I guess. I don't know how to really put it, but they really tied it into a beautiful presentation that honestly couldn't have been done any better.
It's so good. I can't wait to go back there again. I just feel like something really, really incredible has happened, and being able to be there firsthand and like experience it, feel it, walk through the temple. Um, it's not something I ever thought that I would do. Like again, like I've said before on the channel, a lot of these church history sites have just been kind of like abstract ideas to me. So you guys, if you get a chance to visit any of these places, you really should do it. You should, because I feel so much more like a connection now to just like Joseph Smith, like being the places that Joseph Smith was, and then of course Christ and Moses and like all of it, like church history. It's like come to a new. I've gotten to a new spiritual level. It feels like going to these places, and I think it's important to do that. So if you can, go. If you can show your kids, I think that that's really important because it makes a spiritual impression on them. So um anyway, it's really amazing. Now you're going to be doing a YouTube channel, and what's the name going to be? What are you going to be talking about, and what's your vision?
Yeah, so it's my vision is to teach children because I'm a homeschooling mama of 6, and we've been homeschooling since I got the call to homeschool in 2000. October 2018 conference was actually when I got the call. So we got to start homeschooling right before COVID hit. So I have a sweet spot for children, teaching children, and also family history work, if you have not noticed. But my channel will be called Higher Holier History. And I'm in the works of actually writing curriculum for a homeschool company. And so the channel will support that curriculum, but also give people the opportunity to personally find their own story through the pages of history. So I'm going to do some tutorials. I'm going to share my adventures in my own family line to help stir you to get out of your box of thinking and give you a different angle to look at. Because I really feel if we capture our stories, it helps our testimonies to grow and to share our legacy in such a beautiful way. And it brings, when you get to know the people you take through to the temple, it heightens that connection even more. And I love how President Holland, he had to go first in conference.
Yeah,
He had
yeah.
to elevate us to that plane because everything at conference is a testament of what is coming. And what I have seen personally, I can just add that testimony that there is a great need to be in the temple. And if I could just use this one opportunity to tell all the mamas out there that you can enter the temple, you can be an ordinance worker, even when you have littles at home. President Nelson gave me probably one of the biggest blessings in my life when he told us that we could serve in the temple. We didn't have to wait for our children to be out of the house. And it has transformed my home, my family. You cannot afford not to work in the temple. Your family grows such a stronger bond and such a stronger love for family history work and for temple attendance. Like even my little Catherine, who is 3 years old, she's like, Mama, you're going to the temple? Can I come? She knows where we belong, and we belong in the temple, and such miraculous things are happening in the temple. And when you can take your sweet family through that you have found personally or you've gotten to know personally through family history work, the veil is thin. That's all I can say.
I feel like there's a theme here in this video where it's important to actually do and get to know. So whether it's like church sites, it's important to go and be there, not just study about it. With family history, it's important to get to know that person as much as possible because it makes it more real. And like I've talked about in the last, like, some the live streams, it's been important for me to meet you, including you, Jessica, and talking to Tracy, and then meeting the people that I did, like subscribers that were there at the temple. It makes me feel more connected to what I'm doing. Um, but like also participating in church and like actively doing things, whether it's ministering, um, or just supporting your ward, your stake activities. It's important to, because I feel like we've been conditioned in our society to just like kind of like do everything just on the computer and just kind of stay home and like not really interact so much with people. And I think it's really important to do and go and do these things. So yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Okay, so that's really neat. So when do you think you're gonna? So have you already? You haven't already started the channel yet, have you?
I have not. I will, how about this? I will let you know, and then you can blast it on your channel when it's up and running so that they can join. I I the beautiful thing is honestly, Jared, can I, if I can take just a few minutes to share the journey
Yep.
of how you entered my life.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So I had I was given a thought on Christmas Eve, and this thought has stirred in many different directions. And then when Jared extended his call to the women to start channels, I was like, yeah, that's on my list. And I guess I'm going to do it because I feel really prompted to do it. And so just the little steps, they weren't big or grand, just little steps. But Jared, this is the way the Lord works. It's not one big grand gesture or one grand big movement. The mountain is moved. It is the small, simple steps that move the mountain. Because who would have thought you and I would be here talking about our experience at Kirtland, talking about you coming here to Kirtland. It was just small little steps, and you had a desire in your heart, and the Lord knows that desire, and he got you to Kirtland because you desired to be in Kirtland for the eclipse, but you're like, that is so not happening. And the Lord's like, wait a minute. We'll
I,
make it happen.
yeah, I typically like to do things in a measured way. This is like a big thing. It was a long drive and money that we had to buy cows, but we decided to get the rental car instead. And normally, leaning to my own understanding and the way that I do things, I'd be like, no, it sounds great, but no. But yeah, it was like little thing after little thing, and it like quickly escalated. But it was like, yeah, little things led to something big. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so important. I think there's a reason why I love how President Nelson said, you know, obviously take your vitamins because it's going to be an exhilarating ride. And when you are listening to the spirit and you're actively listening, meaning you're going and doing and you're acting upon those promptings, it is invigorating. I'm still on the ride, and I'm like, can I have a hot minute to take off the ride for just a minute so I can collect myself? But it's exhilarating. I mean, this is what the Lord wants. He wants us to gather Israel on both sides of the veil. And so what I'm looking at is gathering Israel on the other side of the veil. And I always tell people, I'm like, it's a different door approach. The people already accepted the gospel. They just need their work done. You know, it's
Mhm.
one of those things that they're just like, come on, I'm waiting.
Yep.
So, but I just, those are the things that I feel is so important. And especially like what President Nelson says, you know, think celestial. If we're thinking celestial, we're going to be celestial. We're going to do celestial things. And as long as we are sanctifying our vessels by going to the temple and receiving the messages and doing the things, he's going to keep using us. We are his hands and feet on this on this side of the veil. You know, we are the ministering angels. You know,
Yeah.
those
And
are
they're
those are essential things. We gotta get in tuned with the spirit and be full of faith and act on it.
and they're making it much easier to go to the temple with all these temple announcements. Like every single conference, it's like more than 10 temples that are being announced. And so we're being left with less and less excuse to not go to the temple. For me, it's like 2.5 hours away, which isn't much of an excuse, but it's like that's pretty close. But once that temple is built, it's only gonna be an hour away. And so
That's great.
it'll be just that much easier. And they were stressing so much how, like, I think it was Elder it wasn't Elder Stevenson, it was Elder Anderson, I believe, where he was talking about why do you think the reason is that the church is building so many temples now? And I was thinking he was gonna say something to the effect of like gathering scattered Israel on the other side of the veil, second coming. I don't know, but he said that the reason why is for protection, like for us to like protect ourselves spiritually and then also temporally. And then just all this talk about angels. Like I was surprised that that was the answer in his talk. But yeah, we got to take advantage of these opportunities to go to the temple. It's so important to actually go there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if any of you, I would encourage you, like if it's like time, like go to the temple like for yourself, uh, get on and then progress down the covenant path and then start doing it for others. Bless them and then also bless yourself by going to the temple and coming out with the protection of angels. Literally, literally,
Yeah.
President Nelson talked about that in his talk was angels. There's so much angel talk. I can't wait to do like my video where I like figure just look at everybody's talks about angels. It was kind of unexpected this conference.
And that's why I think President Holland's talk had to be first. He had to elevate us in order to receive everything that we received at conference. I feel like he definitely had to set the tone and set the bar high because everything. Could you imagine like having all that other information? I don't want to say information, but get all that content from the talks and then have Elder Holland at the end. I think he like raised us so that we can already be thinking in that space. And I think all the talks meant so much more. So yeah.
One thing is during that first session we were driving, we were on our way to Ohio, so we weren't watching it, we were just listening. But when I did my first video when we came back, I was watching him talk and just his the like the look on his face, his body language, his eyes. There was so much more communicated through that than if you just listen to it. And then the same thing with President Nelson too. He had a lot of body language in his talk that really emphasized things and communicated more. So that's another thing. Instead of just like reading, like actually watching, being more connected, more present. I think it's important to like watch General Conference if you can for that additional nonverbal communication that's going on there. So so yeah, you guys take advantage of this opportunity, whether we do an interview, you and me, or whether you just like start it on your own, whether you do a blog, whether you do something, get active. Because if we're quiet and we don't step up, then darkness fills the void. And there's been too much of like worldly voices in the world, and we've got to like shine our light and like help dispel that darkness. So
Yeah.
you were talking like this like started for you like this last Christmas, right? Christmas
Yeah.
Eve, you said.
Yeah.
And your husband, I already know, but your husband's been very supportive of this.
He has. I love him to pieces. And sometimes he's like looking at me like, what on earth? He does not, because obviously I'm homeschooling and I'm taking this on, and he's like, how? But the Lord provides. I mean, every time I have a question, every time like I stumble upon something and I'm just like, I don't know how to fix this, the Lord comes in and shows me the way. And so you have to have faith. Like this is something that it's another testimony. My husband has told me, he's like, just seeing this is a testament of faith, like in its purest form. So I feel like my sweet mother-in-law did such a great job raising him, took him to so many libraries because she loves genealogy work. So she conditioned him well, I should say, because I'm always like, oh, look, there's a cemetery. Oh, look. And he's like, oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. But I feel like there are so many people out there that are lost, that don't know where they're going or what they're doing. But if you're lost, my prayer to you is that you pray for something bigger than yourself. Because when we're actively in service of others, we get out of those pits. And as hard as it may feel like you can't function, you're in survival mode, the greatest thing that you can do is just go and serve your neighbor and to just get that started. And the more you work towards that, the Lord comes in and he helps you along. And going back to what you said, Jared, about getting your army, every time you take a name to the temple, they are in your army. They are protecting you. They're helping you. They're ministering to you in so many tender ways. And I want that experience for as many people as possible. And that's why I'm starting my channel, because I really want to say it's doable. It's not a foreign thing. Don't worry about whoever's in charge of family history. Don't worry about stepping on their toes. Just say, I'm going in. I want to hear their voices. I want to hear their story. And I want to get to know my family, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. So let me pay my thanks by finding out who they are and taking a name to the temple to just have that connection.
Yeah. And yeah, connecting with them, it gives you a sense of identity. President Nelson keeps talking about knowing who you really are, and he's usually referring to the fact, like referring back to like your life before this earth, and you had a life there and you were prepared to come here at a certain time and do certain things. So he's usually talking about that, but part of that is also family history, a lot of times, because you're sent to the family that you are, because of the pre-mortal life. Somehow there was some kind of organization there when it comes to like your family. Now you could be like the first one in your family to have joined the church, and then you affect future generations. But also, you never know like how far back you may actually there. For all you know, you may come across an ancestor, and maybe it won't be until the millennium, but at some point we all go back to like at least like Israel and Isaac and Abraham and stuff like that. A lot of the time, like there, I've gone over quotes, how Brigham Young and I think Joseph Fielding Smith, they talked about the fact that most members of the church, if not all, can trace their lineage back to, they have like that Israelite blood in them. And so, anyway, I'm just kind of like, sorry, I'm getting a little bit scatterbrained
We all
here.
go back to Noah at some point.
Yeah,
We all
also,
survived the flood.
but anyway, it's important to know who you are and who you descend from, and connect with your family. That's
Yes.
basically it.
Yeah.
So, um, anyway, what other places have you been? So you've been to Nauvoo, you're
Mhm.
obviously Kirtland, and also the Sacred Grove, right? Because you said that it was like only 4 hours away from where you're at.
Yeah, it's about 4.5 hours. And I have not yet been to the Sacred Grove.
Oh, you haven't been there yet?
Mhm.
Oh, you should
Nope.
get there.
I know. Well, maybe I'll wait until you guys come back.
Yeah, I would like to come back and see all those places. I'm like, I never thought that I'd see all these places in person, but like I am, and it's good.
Yeah.
So
I've been to Salt Lake. Actually, I served my mission in the Salt Lake mission. President Hinckley's son, Richard Hinckley, was my mission president. So that was between 2004, 2005. And that was amazing. Talk about having the most epic family home evenings or lessons on Temple Square, and have like the backdrop of the Salt Lake Temple and
yeah,
all those amazing things. I've been to St. George. I've been to Vernal Temple before it was dedicated. What other places have I been? Well, obviously, pretty much any temple in the valley, because I have family in Utah. But I'm a Wisconsin girl, born and bred and raised in the good old Midwest, and the Lord just is guiding our path. That's something that my husband has definitely learned, is that the Lord is definitely guiding us. From us to go to North Carolina was crazy. And then us going to Ohio was just pivotal. I think it was definitely a hinge point in our family. That's for sure.
Yeah. And but the key to that is you have to like allow him to guide you, and
Yes.
you have to wonder like how many people forfeit those opportunities because sometimes what he prompts you to do may be a little bit scary or
Scary.
like against conventional wisdom, you
Yeah.
know, because like again, moving to Kansas, that was kind of drastic. I always like pictured staying in like the Southwest somewhere, whether it's Utah, Vegas, Arizona, like that. That's what I always pictured. And so it was kind of like a little bit uncomfortable moving from where I felt was like home,
Yeah.
but it was clearly the right decision. And then again, coming up to Kirtland, like that was like really quick and fast and furious and kind of like against like what I felt comfortable with, but Heavenly Father kept giving me reassurances. So you guys, if you feel promptings to do things and it kind of goes against what you think is, if it's kind of like scary to you, if you know it's coming from the Lord, then just trust it. But trust it. It will work out, I promise. Like we still have to like do our part and make sure like again, I've talked about this before. When I went to Adamandayaman and I stayed with Tamara and her husband Jared at their place, they talked about the fact that there were people that there's people pretty commonly that just show up in that area, but they don't have a plan. So you do have to like you can't it's not all just like magical. You have to like make sure like you do things in a practical way. But if the Lord is like providing that way, then do it and then it will work out.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here unless you had anything else that you wanted to share or add or talk about with your channel that you're going to be making.
No, I think we pretty much did a pretty good job. And the one thing I do want to say though is, um, Jared, thank you. Because if it wasn't for your initial like call out, this wouldn't have happened. All of it. Like, um, you listen to a prompting and you're like, hey, this needs to happen. And I listened, like I immediately when I saw that part, I was like, I messaged my mom, I'm like, Mom, should I email him? And she's like, yeah, go for it. And it just everything that followed, like it was a domino effect. And for you to come with your sweet family, which I absolutely love. You, my dear friend, answered a fast that I had with my daughter because she was looking for a special friend to talk about spiritual things with. And your sweet daughter answered that that prayer, that fast. And I think that speaks volumes of what you and Jenica are doing. If we are openly talking about spiritual things, if we're openly talking about gospel related things, our children feel that that is okay to talk about. And it's not like, ooh, should I talk about it? Should I? You know, they are more apt to be bold in their testimonies and bold in their actions when they listen to the Spirit. And I think that is what needs to happen with this rising generation, is that we need to be open. And I think President Holland set the tone, conference set the tone for those conversations to truly be happening within our families. And if we do that, then we can make sweet friends all over the place, and we can do such great and marvelous works by simple and small means.
Yeah. My girls were really happy to meet your kids as well as Melanie's kids and connect with other righteous youth that have like the same values and the same desires. And it's funny, I'll tell you this. So again, originally we weren't going to see the eclipse. Then we went to Tamara's house and her and Jared like, "Hey, are you guys planning on going to the eclipse? Like you really should think about doing it. Like here's some video like when we were in Idaho." And it got me excited and thinking, I was like, "Yeah, you know what? maybe we'll go to Arkansas. That's the closest place. And so as we were looking at Arkansas, the closest one of the better locations was a place called Russellville. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. It's like President Nelson. That's going to be, funny to talk about when I do the live stream when we go to Russellville, Arkansas. And I put out the invitation like, hey, does anybody want to meet up? Ideally, we'd like to meet up with like another couple that has like kids the same age, because then our kids will have something to do. And so a couple of people responded. But then all this started to happen. And so I was like, it started opening up, and I felt like getting like I was being pushed to go to Kirtland instead. So I was like, okay, sorry guys, we're not going to come to Arkansas. And they were understanding. I'll still come to Arkansas, still meet with you. I've already talked to you. You know who you are. We'll still meet up. But we went to Kirtland, and we ended up staying at a place called Hartville, not spelled H-A-R-T. But I was like, what? We were going to go to Russellville, and now we're going to Hartville. It was just like, because President Nelson being a heart surgeon. So we did that. And then I was still like unsure about how things were going to play out going to the Kirtland Temple, because at that point, you guys were not planning to go to the Kirtland Temple. You were going to watch it from your place, right? With
Yeah.
Melanie.
Yeah.
Well, so things worked out to where Jessica and Melanie and James met us at the Kirtland Temple, and they had kids the same age as my kids. So it's almost like it was like a good plan for Arkansas, but like things got like transferred to Kirtland, and it all worked out like perfectly. Like it worked out perfectly, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, just I wanted you to know that. I just thought that was like so interesting. Russellville and then Hartville, and then like we were gonna be meet up with a family with kids, but then we had you guys. Like the Lord like just like transferred it. It was like supposed to be this. It's like when you remember like with the Relief Society, I can't remember the exact story, but they like the women had come up with like an idea for the Relief Society, and they brought it to Joseph Smith, and he's like, this is like the best thing I've ever seen. Like there just needs to be some adjustments. And then he like whatever, he added his adjustments to the Relief Society. That's what it felt like. Like it was like, yeah, Arkansas, that's a good idea, but you know what? This is like what I would like you to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just everything is so cool. I just can't believe it all happened.
You're
So
still coming off the mountain.
yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna come off the mountain to this, but the
I
way
don't
that things are
think so
going,
either.
my gosh. And I think it's like with the whole church too. Like this general conference was really special, historic. Oh, just a lot to
To
get
unpack.
into in process. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you, Jessica, for all that you did, making it possible, not just for me and my family, but for everybody to experience Kirtland and the eclipse through my channel. We will meet up again. I'm planning on it maybe later this year, maybe next year. I'm not sure, but it will happen. Um, and then I'll look forward to talking to you once your channel is up and going. So, and you guys, once she has her channel up, once she has it up, I'll put it under my featured channels, and then we'll do an interview so you know that she's going, and the rest will be history, I'm sure. So, all right, Jessica, thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
You guys, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and go to church sites if you get a chance. Please do that. I have a testimony of like going to church sites. It'll strengthen your testimony. And I'll talk to you guys later.